Hello, I'm Father Bob Warren, a Franciscan Friar of the Atonement, and I'd like to share with you the story of St. Anthony of Padua. St. Anthony has a special place in our history. The friars have always turned to St. Anthony in our times of need, asking him to intercede with Almighty God on our behalf. Since the earliest days of Greymoor, we have referred to him as our big brother. St. Anthony of Padua is one of the Catholic Church's most popular saints. Many of us may know him as the patron saint of lost and stolen articles, or we may know him as he is typically portrayed, holding the child Jesus, or a lily, a book, or all three in his arms. Yet looking back at Anthony's story, we discover the life of a well-loved Franciscan preacher and teacher, a saint of the people. St. Anthony was born in the year 1195 in the city of Lisbon, Portugal, and given the name of Fernando at baptism. When Fernando was 15 years old, he joined the religious community of Canons Regular of St. Augustine in Lisbon. At 17, he was transferred to the Augustinian monastery at Santa Cruz, which was renowned for its biblical scholarship. Here, he spent 9 years in intense study. There's every indication that during this time, he learned the sacred scriptures, memorizing them by heart. When he was 25 years old, Fernando encountered 5 Franciscan friars who were on their way to Morocco, most likely to die as martyrs for the gospel. 5 months later, the bodies of these 5 were brought back from Morocco. Fernando was deeply moved by their deaths. These men had risked their own lives out of love of the gospel, and Fernando was inspired and determined to do the same. In his enthusiasm, he went to the Franciscan friary and said to the friars, "If I may go to Morocco and imitate these brothers, I will gladly join you." Soon after, with the reluctant permission of his Augustinian superior, he joined the friars, taking the name Anthony after the patron saint of the friary, St. Anthony of the Olives. True to their promise, the Franciscans allowed Anthony to go to Morocco to be a witness for Christ, and if necessary, be a martyr as well. However, God had other plans for this generous young man. Soon after arriving in Morocco, he became seriously ill, and after several months, realized he had to go home. On the return voyage, the ship ran into a violent storm, and they were blown off course all the way to Sicily, where they landed at Messina. In Messina, Anthony found a group of friars who took him in and nursed him back to health. From them, he heard about a great meeting of all the friars with St. Francis, the founder of their order. And though still ill, he accompanied these friars north to Assisi. This meeting with St. Francis on May the 23rd, 1221, would become known as the Chapter of Mats, so called because the 3,000 friars who attended could not be housed, and they had to sleep on mats. Anthony was one of the few unknown foreign friars among the thousands gathered for this meeting. As the chapter broke up, Anthony was ignored by everyone. None of the provincials really wanted this foreign friar, who for some reason did not seem to impress anyone. However, when it came time for all the friars to leave, he caught the attention of one provincial from the north of Italy, who sent him to a small hermitage. In this small fraternity, he lived a simple life, doing menial tasks like cleaning, gardening, setting tables, and washing dishes. He was known at the time only as a simple brother who lived cheerfully among his brethren in contemplation and fraternity, in poverty and joy. This time lasted for a period of 12 months. Perhaps we would never have heard of St. Anthony if he hadn't gone to an ordination of some Dominicans and Franciscans in 1222. It seems that the person who had prepared the sermon for the ordination didn't make it, and so the provincial asked that one of the Franciscan friars give a short sermon. As it turned out, Anthony was asked to give a few simple words. Anthony stepped forward and began to speak in a simple, artless way. Yet the fire within him became evident as he continued to speak. His deep knowledge was unmistakable, but his holiness was what really impressed everyone there. Now he was exposed, and his quiet life of prayer and penance at the hermitage was exchanged for that of a public preacher. Francis heard of Antony's hidden gifts, and soon he was assigned to preach in northern Italy. The problem with many preachers in Antony's day was that their lifestyle contrasted sharply with that of the poor people for whom they preached. People of that time wanted to see a genuine gospel-inspired lifestyle in their spiritual guides, and in Antony they found it. They were moved by who he was, even more than by what he said. Despite his efforts, not everyone was open to receiving his message. Legend has it that one day while preaching in a town ruled by heretical preachers, the people of the town did not like what he had to say and refused to listen. So Antony turned to the river and preached to the fishes instead, and we are told they listened. As Antony continued to preach to the people and teach the friars, he assumed more responsibility within the order. In 1226, he was appointed provincial superior of northern Italy. Yet, as always, he still made the time for contemplative prayer in a small hermitage. Around Easter in 1228, at the age of 33, while in Rome, he met Pope Gregory IX, who was himself a faithful friend and advisor of St. Francis. Naturally, Antony, now famous, was invited to speak. He did it humbly, as always. The response to his speaking was so great that people later said it seemed the miracle of the first Pentecost was repeated. Eventually, Antony arrived in Padua in northern Italy. Padua is located a short distance west of Venice. At the time of Antony, Padua was an important city with a highly respected university for the study of civil and church law. It was in Padua where he preached his last and most famous series of Lenten sermons. The crowds were so great, as many as 30,000, that the churches could not hold them. So he often preached in the town squares or open fields where greater numbers could gather. People waited all night to hear him. He needed a bodyguard to protect him from the crowds, some armed with scissors, waiting to snip off a piece of his habit as a relic or souvenir. The great amount of energy he expended during the 40 days of Lent in 1231 left him exhausted. So after Easter, he escaped to a little town near Padua to rest. But upon seeing death coming close, he asked to return to the city he loved. As it turned out, he was physically unable to make it back to Padua and had to stop at the town of Arsilla. At Arsilla, he received the last sacraments and died in peace. He was only 36 and had been a Franciscan for about 10 years. The tradition of devotion to St. Anthony of Padua began almost immediately upon his death on June 13, 1231. Thousands came to view his body and attend his burial. Antony's grave immediately became a place of extraordinary devotion and numerous miracles. Within less than 1 year of his death, Pope Gregory IX declared him a saint. In 1946, Pope Pius XII officially declared St. Anthony a Doctor of the Church. To this day, St. Anthony of Padua is one of the Catholic Church's most revered and popular saints. This is evidenced by the fact that year after year, the Friars of the Atonement welcome thousands of pilgrims to St. Anthony's Shrine here at Graymoor in Garrison, New York. We hope that by sharing with you the story of the life of our beloved St. Anthony, you will grow in your appreciation of him and of all the saints. In the spirit of my fellow Franciscan, St. Anthony of Padua, may God bless you always.